ashes. The spirits light up the night, looking down the edge of forever. So stop me or take my advice.
Now, from the Untold Radio Network, it's Untold Radio AM with Doug and Alex Hajicek.
There you are.
How's it going?
Good. It's going good. It's been absolutely crazy.
Insanely busy.
I was literally multitasking today. I was eating, I was directing, I was taking calls, I was texting people, making future arrangements, all because of legitimate science. So anyhow, welcome everybody to Untold Radio. Well, there was full. Now it's crap. Okay, this story is so spooky tonight. I took the garbage out early.
Oh, of course.
So I didn't have to take it out at 1 a.m, 2 a.m. See?
Smart.
First time ever I planned ahead for this.
Which is good because we got a spooky one tonight.
Yeah, I know. That's why I did that. I don't want the sprinklers to come on at 2 a.m, and scare the living bejesus out of me. So I took the garbage out early, and then of course it's been kind of I don't know, wet, whatever. It's kind of nasty out. Then my sprinklers came on, right?
Yeah.
And there was a weed growing up out of the flower garden as I walked in. So I grabbed it, not realizing it's stinging nettle.
Oh,
my
no.
bare hand. Just grabbed a big chunk of it. My hand's kind of doing the itchy, pokey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll go away. Not worried about it. I watched my brother one time. I threw a Frisbee into a big, giant growth of nettle. He jumped. He leaped like 6 feet in the air, and he leaped right into the nettle, with swim trunks on. And boy, he came out of there quick. Oh, no. That was your Uncle Rob did that. Rob, yeah. Anyhow, what do we got going on? Episode 154. It's August 16th. We have Matt. Nobody knows how to pronounce his last name. I'm thinking it's Emch because he doesn't really have a vowel in there. Right? So how would you pronounce it?
I would have to go with Emch.
Emch. I think it's German. It's got to be German.
Yeah. We'll let him correct us.
It's got to be. I'm just guessing it's German, but anyhow, we'll see. But anyhow, Matt's going to tell us a harrowing tale of a Dogman encounter, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe it lasted all night. Like it was a long encounter. It was a cat and mouse game, yeah. So should be interesting. What else we have in the news? We have the mammoth coming back in, guaranteed, promised 2024. They are going to release 100. Did I say 100th?
100th.
100 mammoths into the Russian tundra.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they are. And I'm sure they'll be, fenced in. Although, how do you fence in a mammoth?
I didn't know that was even possible.
Yeah, what are they just going to break right through whatever fence?
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I would imagine they're going to be sterile. They're not going to be able to breed on their own. I don't know. Maybe somebody can enlighten us that. But they're going to take an Indian elephant and use CRISPR and put in the mammoth DNA, then implant the embryo in an Indian elephant. It's going to give birth to a true purebred mammoth.
Wow. The fact that they
but I
can
don't
do that.
know if it's fertile or sterile. That I don't know. I think it's sterile.
It's some Jurassic Park stuff right here.
Yeah, but that's coming out in less than a year.
Are they going to make dinosaurs with crocodiles?
I would imagine they've got some dinosaur DNA in amber. Certainly there's insects. They have the DNA that are preserved in amber.
Yeah.
So it would be our luck that that's the first thing that somebody named Mr. Gates does is gets these prehistoric mosquitoes, right, from the Pleistocene era,
Yeah.
or God knows when, and breeds them and releases them.
And you just got to start with an
In
island.
the name of mankind, of course.
Of course.
I don't know. Just
It'd be
joking.
a really cool park.
I'm just joking. Wink, wink. Okay, what do we got? So there is a headline that's going to throw you completely back. Grabbed me. It was on the front page. And I'm thinking, what is this garbage doing on the front page of the news today and yesterday? You know what this garbage headline is?
What's the headline?
Garbage. Reports of predator-like aliens in the jungles of Peru, and they're eating people.
What? Predator like aliens?
Yeah, you know, like from the movie.
Yeah, with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So it says recently the indigenous Makutu people of Alto Nene. I did that good, didn't I? Alto.
That sounded legit.
You got to say Nene quick. Northeast of Lima, Peru, have been visited by their own mysterious, I love they go, possibly alien interlopers. Alien interlopers. I love that word. And things have not gone quite as peacefully as they would hoped. Police in Peru have responded to reports of 8-foot, listen to this, 8-foot armored creatures attacking locals in the Peruvian Amazon jungle. It doesn't get any creepier than that if it's true. It could be. Hey, I've seen weird stuff. I mean, it could be true. What if it is?
It could be. That's just,
that's what's weird about it. And it wasn't the front page of the news. So, you know, you can believe everything on the front page of the news. Everything. Take it to the bank. Okay, but there are multiple reports of these strange entities in the area. And this dates back to July 11th. There's an exact date when these three-eyed, horned, armored aliens are eating people. July 11th, 2023. Witnesses report the yellow eyes. They have yellow eyes. Yellow-eyed, round. They have round shoes on their feet with glowing red light. So apparently their feet are lit up with a red light. Okay, and they float 1 meter off the ground. So they're floating like almost 3 feet off the ground.
That is crazy.
It's making my shivers shiver. Okay. They also reported, listen, it just gets better and better. It says reported also to be impervious to human weapons. And the weapons vanish as quickly as they the creatures vanish as quickly as they appear. So these things are just, like they're everybody's, monster.
Oh my gosh.
And because apparently they have an extraterrestrial cloaking device. Okay, it says, whatever they are, they've been tormenting the locals for the better part of a month now. Accumulating, how do you say that word?
Accumulated?
Accumulating. I don't know why it just doesn't look like it would be that way, but accumulating in an attack during which a 15-year-old had their neck cut. So now we're throwing kids in there too. These giant gentlemen, no, never mind. I need stronger glasses. These gentlemen are aliens. This is in the article. These gentlemen are aliens. I don't know what that means. It says they appear to be armored like the green goblins from the Spider-Man. Somebody quotes, I shot one of them twice, and he wasn't even injured. He rose and disappeared. We're very frightened about what's happening here in our community. So the community leader. All of this comes hot on the heels of increased reports of UAP activity as a former intelligence community member testifying before Congress about the alleged UFO recovery and reverse engineering programs. So there you go. Doesn't get any better than those headlines.
Fascinating.
In that article. You can take it right to the bank.
Right to the bank.
Right there. Just take it there. Okay, so I was going to just give people a little update on Legend Meets Science, right?
Yeah, update.
To our
Please, let
donors
us
and
know,
stuff.
yeah.
So we did complete the world's first LiDAR drone survey of a film site
That is so cool.
to get every last little tiny dimension from the air. And then, of course, our drone, we flew it above that drone. So you can see it doing its thing.
Cool,
it's really cool. Yeah.
Capture the moment.
And of course, Jeff Meldrum was on site. I brought Jeff Meldrum in, Cliff Brockman, who Cliff is really an expert on that film site. And it's the film site of the Freeman footage. And then we brought Isaac Tien, who is a PhD. He's an engineer in artificial intelligence and video graphics and all those things. But anyhow, am I missing? Oh, and then of course the company that did the drone stuff. So anyhow, we can show pictures from photo 1. Yeah, there's the crew. There's everybody there, except the guy taking the picture's not in the picture. You know how that works, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that's Vlad. So that's Scott Hoffman, who was on our show the other day. And there's Isaac Tien, and then Jeff Meldrum, and then Cliff, and then Russell Large, the drone operator. And I guess they looked at the data already, and they said it's incredible. Like, it's like, oh my God. So we're going to animate everything, the whole film site. You'll even be able to see the creature from Paul Freeman's eyes, from every angle, from everything. When there's objects there that have not changed at all, they're still there. The logs and, like cut stumps, still there.
So awesome.
Yeah. So we'll be able to we'll be accurate within 1 centimeter.
That's incredible.
Okay. So then, just throw another picture up of the same thing. Photo 2. Yeah. There's Scott interviewing Jeff after the fact, after we did the successful drone. And I actually was interviewing Jeff remotely. So it's just cool. And this is in the Blue Mountains.
Oh, it's
and
so beautiful.
Yeah, in photo 3, imagine a Bigfoot living there. They're unpacking. This drone takes up the whole rear of the pickup truck. And those are with the blades not extended. Blades are like 24 inches, 2 foot each blade. And this drone is huge, carrying this massive payload of this big LiDAR unit. So stuff ain't cheap. Just the gas bill just to get Jeff there was like $700. Yeah, it's nuts.
It's not cheap at all.
Everything is so expensive, and of course we had to pay. I don't even want to think about it, what we had to spend. But this is what it costs to do real science.
To do real science, real research.
It's not cheap. And then throw up. Then we went to David Ellis, and we did a very long, extensive interview. I interviewed David all day. And we're trying to get a lot of really clear, crystal clear information as to why Bigfoot vocalizations are very important evidence. And scientifically, they cannot be faked. So that we did that too today.
He's looking good.
Yeah, there's David. We got see his book back there? I made a giant book for his backdrop.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Of course, I sprung that on the film crew right at the last second. Well, by the way, I need you to go make a giant book. And they didn't complain. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Anyhow. So we're past that. Let's just go right to the clips, and then we're going to bring Matt on. Let's go to our strange clips. Clip 1 is sound is good. It's the biggest tree on the East Coast. It's believed to be a cottonwood tree. I don't know how you find, make sure it's the biggest, but they believe it to be. And sounds good.
The biggest tree in New York State here today is a cottonwood, Populus deltoides, eastern cottonwood, contender for the national title, a gigantic tree in New York State.
We had a cottonwood when I grew up, and the neighbors made us cut it down because it left gooey cotton
What?
and dewy sap, these
Really?
little pea pods. Oh my God. They literally took a petition up because we had one in our yard that was, I mean, it wasn't that big, but it was big. I mean, it was probably a couple 100 years old.
That big.
Took a petition up, and my dad had to have it cut down at great expense. We didn't fight it. There was like 40 signatures on it.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it was like polluting everybody's yard. It was not good. Anyhow, my poor dad. Okay. Clip 2, sound is good. This was a hailstorm that happened in Minnesota and wiped out your Uncle Joe's house.
Ooh.
Play this.
Oh my God! Look at these.
This is a golf course. This is what hail will
That
do.
was the golf course.
Golf course, yeah.
Man, it's just destroyed.
Yep. It's not good.
Or the next day. Holy cripes!
Oh, can you imagine being out in that?
Yeah, here it is. Here's the footage of the actual storm. Joe's car got destroyed too. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Man, it just missed us. It just missed you, Alex, by a tiny bit. You would have had to put a whole new roof on your brand new house.
Oh.
It's sad.
Perfect.
And it's really fun when you can't get anybody to put the new roof on your house.
Because
there ain't
everyone's...
nobody to put roofs on.
Yeah.
Can't get anybody. It's crazy. I was trying to get a contractor. Well, let's see. Let's put it about 4 years to meet with a contractor. And because I was directing today a shoot, I was 20 minutes late. But he knew I was going to be late and he left anyhow. Never got to talk to him. 4 years of waiting. So
Here's the 4 more.
And now I wait 4 years. Now he's mad at me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is so sad. The state of construction. Kids, some of you need not to go to college. You can make way more money learning the trades. You know, I really believe in that. It's just nobody doing the trades anymore. What are we at? Clip. I said Cliff. And the reason I said Cliff by accident instead of Clip 3 is because this is about a cliff. So play Clip 3. The sound is good. This is a little weird. You're going to have to listen close. Turn your volume up. You look at her hair.
Do it again.
Now listen. You can actually see the static hitting your
Yeah.
fingers. And that is caused by the winds blowing up the rugged cliff sides.
That's a real phenomenon. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. It can happen even on lakes. You know, even when the skies are clear, you can get static in the boat, and if it's real windy, you know. So, okay, Clip 4. Don't play the sound, but you can just play it. This speaks for itself. This guy just went nuts on this Ghostbuster, replica car. But look at this. I love the hologram in the back.
Oh yeah, this is insane. It's for Halloween. Like this
Yeah.
is so cool.
He's built this for this upcoming Halloween. But look how cool that is.
Oh yeah, the attention to detail.
Yeah, that's...
How
I
long
think
that
about
takes to
some
build.
little kid, in the family car riding behind him, and that ghost going crazy. Either they'd be really scared or really entertained. John Ayers said that last clip was shocking.
It was get it? It was shocking.
John Ayers should have been a stand-up comedian. Very dry, but he would have been really good.
Yeah, he's
Witty.
quite the salty guy.
Yeah, he's he's got a salty personality.
Yeah.
And anyhow, I wanted to just take a second to say hi to my friend Mothy in England, in the UK, who's listening right now. So I'm saying hi to old Mothy. Do you know Mothy?
Yes.
Okay, you
Yes.
do.
Whitward.
Yeah, so you know Mothy, so I'm saying hi to him. Let's
Hi,
say hi to
Monty.
John Branichuk, who is starting a podcast on this network called Grasping Sasquatch, which will be sometime in September. whenever he gets all his studio gear, which, I don't know, you're going to have to put some tracking numbers on all that gear, Alex, because only some of it's come. But we've got, we've got an audience. We've got Sibylla, Erwin, Lori Barnes. We have Abe, I believe. Abe Del Rio from the Minnesota Big Bird Research Team.
My favorite.
David Graham. And we have Siberia Visitor. I don't want to know where Siberia is. Sounds like a planet, doesn't it?
Yes.
If I sound extra hoarse, I've been on the phone all day. Okay. And and David Ellis. David Ellis, he knows I was talking all day today. All right, so what do we have now? We have clip 5, just something David Ellis actually be interested in. It is this hummingbird moth cross. It's what you would get if a hummingbird and a moth had a baby. So play it. Sounds fine. I just saw one of these the other day. That's why I bring it up. Those wings are beating really quick. You can't even see them go. But the shutter on the camera causes it so the wings look like they're beating slow. But they beat as quick as a hummingbird. And a lot of people mistake those. And it is just a moth. It's like a hawk moth, they call them.
It's weird.
It's weird. You've never seen one?
Oh. I don't know where you find these creatures. I don't see these things at the zoo.
Well, it was in our garden. Yvette saw it too. Yep. Okay. Let's see. The next one, I wouldn't put any sound just because there's swearing in it. But the reason I wanted to show this clip, this is the proper way to film a UFO. Because he's got something. Go ahead and play it. I can talk through it because it doesn't get real cool till the end. But he's got the moon. So you can see actually some relationship in the movement.
So you have a point of reference.
There's the roof of a garage. All you need is a corner of a roof, just some stationary object. He'd be better off if he just stood still, But just watch what happens. But this is the proper way to film a light in the sky. Otherwise, it's just a light. If you just zoom in on the light, what do you got? You got a light. There's no movement.
Whoa.
So it blows like a smoke ring.
Yeah.
And I find this interesting only because I've been looking at other UFO videos similar. So God knows what kind of new craft is visiting us.
Have you seen objects do this in other videos? Blow like a smoke ring?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Many of them. So, anyhow, but that's why you film a UFO. Get some objects in there. Street light even. It could be anything. Clip 7. Now, I want you to kind of go to about the middle. You don't need sound with this.
Could we, would you be against going to clip 8? It looks like I didn't get the link.
Oh,
it was missing.
I did screw that up, didn't I? Not only did you not get it, I didn't send it.
That's okay. We can go to clip 8.
Yeah, we'll go to clip 8. I'll do the clip 7 is worth. I'll show it next Wednesday.
Okay, perfect. Cool.
It's a 1773 robot.
What?
So I'm going to show it. It's really cool.
That'd be
It's really
super
cool. Yeah. So anyhow, let's go to clip 8. Sounds fine. Listen to this story.
One statement from a total stranger in an airport bathroom made a huge impact in my life. I was in this airport bathroom washing my hands, and there's this guy standing next to me at the sink, and he was in a 3-piece suit. He looked super sharp. And after he washed his hands, he got these paper towels and dried his hands and began wiping down the counters and the fixtures with his paper towels and just being very intentional with it. And it just looked a bit odd because he was dressed so nicely. And I just looked over at him, kind of cracked a joke. And I just said, "You've been working here long?" And he looked over at me, kind of smiled. He said, "It's not a bad idea to leave things a little better than how you found them." I remember thinking, wow, could you imagine the impact that would have in our lives if everything we did, we left a little better than we found them?
Powerful. You're muted, Dad. You're muted. Can you hear me? Dad, you're muted.
That took you a long time to tell me I was muted. I said, I'll say it again. That was hilarious. Oh, yeah. and it's just a story. You know, when you go camping, pick up the garbage.
Yeah.
You go to a gazebo to use it for a picnic. Pick up some other trash. Don't just pick up your own. Pick up somebody else's. You know, the more people that do that, the more those people, and you know who those people are, won't leave their stuff. And litter in America is getting worse and worse and worse.
It is getting worse.
It really is getting bad. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So
no, it's a nice thing to. You know.
All right, what do we got now?
At 9.
By the way, Gus Moyer has an interesting comment. I'm not sure. Is that something you need to look into?
You said Gus? Is this
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. It was at 7:19 p.m.
Okay.
But I don't think it's happening. You said our picture was static. It could be his connection, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be.
Clip 9. Sound is good. I just call this clip. It's real short. I call it no thanks.
Wow, he pulled a Tom Cruise.
Not just a little. Yeah. Exactly. Just
Did you
play that again. That's just insane. The sound and somebody really did that. What do you say to your wife that morning of that stunt?
I know.
Good knowing you. What?
Did you know he did that for the new Mission Impossible?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, I don't know if is it true?
Yeah, you can. There's like a 10-minute YouTube video where you can see all the tests they did and the training, and he did it like 10 times for the movie.
Gosh,
it's insane.
Clip 10. Cut to the sound. So cut the sound as soon as the bear breaks the fence. But this kind of illustrates how sneaky and clumsy black bears can be. And they can be very sneaky. Watch what this bear does.
Holy shit.
Watch this.
Hey.
He knows he's doing wrong, right? And it's like, I'm out of there. That's exactly what happened up at Snellgrove when I was with Uncle Joe. I put a bunch of Chips Ahoy cookies in a suitcase and I crumbled them all up. I just had a feeling a bear was going to come into camp, and it did. Yeah, we all set our suitcases out. I went outside. Everybody was hiding in the cabin. I went outside with the bear. It was just a little black bear, you know. It was probably like stunted practically. I go out there. The bear's just looking at me. Then Joe comes out. He joins me. And the bear looks at me, looks at the suitcase, looks at me, looks at the suitcase, and grabs the suitcase and bolts. And the suitcase catches on like a limb, and it tears open. And Joe's underwear and his hat and his clothes are just spewing through the forest. And Joe had to go, of course, go pick up everything, you know, chase after the bear, pick up all his stuff. He gets home, and then he realized when he got home why the bear took his suitcase. Because when he got home to unpack, all the cookie crumbs came out.
Oh, no.
So anyhow, that's it. That's all I got. I got nothing else. I'm empty. What time is it? Oh, perfect. We're 1 minute late to bring our guest on. I do not have a bio for our guest. You?
I don't. How did you guys hook up?
On Facebook.
On Facebook?
Sure. So I do know, I believe Matt's a broadcaster. But this story, and his story, I guess, is pretty great. I actually did hear this story from Matt somewhere else. But let's go ahead and get Matt on.
I just I shot him a reminder. He hasn't popped in.
Oh, yet. He hasn't popped in yet. Sure, the one night I only.
I know, right?
On schedule.
You're dead on schedule. This is
the one night. The one night.
Well,
I can talk about all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Legend Meets Science. I know you've been super busy with shooting and scheduling and planning and.
Yeah. I was talking to Isaac Tian, and he had mentioned we could actually take this video and put it into a 360 program. so people can use it like an ocular riff, or we can do it in YouTube. Also has 360 videos you can
Okay.
post.
So people could actually, it's almost like they could be there. They could look around full 360.
Yep, and they can see the creature right through Paul's eyes.
Okay, so it looks like Matt just popped in here.
He popped in.
He popped in.
Popped.
Yep.
Well, I hope he doesn't pop out. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Guys, I apologize for being a couple minutes late.
That's all right. You've been our problem child the whole 2 days here.
I apologize.
Yeah, because Matt, he likes to use text, do a voice to text, right?
Yes.
So I get these weird messages that make no sense. Like for
I'm
Link,
stopping that.
For Link, the word was limbo. So I'm like, Matt, what the heck does limbo mean? The limbo didn't work. And then he voice texts his phone number. So his phone number comes in wrong. So Alex is trying to get a hold of you for like 2 days with this wrong phone number.
Well, I promise you from now on, whenever I talk to either one of you, it will be typed from now on.
Tight. There we go.
Type.
No, it's fine, man. It's just stuff happens. It's technology. We're all learning to use this crap, this new tech. All of us are.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And you just learned a hard lesson with the tech.
I did. And I apologize again. And, it's been really crazy for me too. The last, I told you how I do sports broadcasting and I call football. This Friday is our first game, and normally games would be at the end of August, beginning of September. But the Ohio High School Athletic Association, when COVID hit, they decided to add X number of more teams to make people, teams feel better about themselves that they were making the playoffs. Yeah. When really what it is it's more of a money ploy for them. They get more money because more teams are in the playoffs, and these poor teams that make the playoffs that normally wouldn't make the first round, and they get embarrassed. So,
but our audience wants to hear about Dogman, not sports.
Yeah, and they will. They won't hear anymore.
So I love your. You got a little spooky background going on there. I like that. All right, so everybody needs to turn their lights down low, I guess. Except me and Alex, we can't, and we'll disappear. So
would you like me to light it up a little more? Is it too dark?
No, it's good. No, I love it.
This is moody. This is great.
Moody. It's perfect. There you go. Okay. Beautiful. Good. Beautiful. I even took my garbage out early because of you, Matt.
Well, thank you.
I was not going out there at 2 a.m. alone.
That is an honor.
Yes, after we hear your story. All right. So let's just kind of start and dig in, because there'll be plenty of questions. What happened? And you can kind of take your time, but what happened?
Well, the first experience that I had, I was 14 years old. I was coming out of grade school and getting into the summertime, which, when young men who are all close friends get out of grade school for summer, man, you're ready to just turn it on and start hitting the city and
hanging out with your buds, hanging out with your friends, your bikes, and all that.
Right. And we like to cause havoc. We like to go around and just get crazy. And, Youngstown, Ohio, especially when it was during this time, was not known as really especially safe city to be in. Unfortunately, numerous times through the years, Youngstown has gotten, the moniker of Murder Town, USA. We've had that unfortunate name because of per capita. We've had the highest murder rates in the country, like 4 or 5 times. Not something, we want to be known for. But during that time, there was a lot of gang things going on. We had a lot of Bloods and Crips, even here in Ohio. And so we had to be really careful. But, we went for the entire area. We did not hang around just within, like, say, a 20, 30-minute bike ride from our homes. We would travel all over the area. We would go hours away from where we lived. And one of the spaces that we like to go to was the old steel mills in downtown Youngstown. And, you know, I always tell people this when I start this story. You can go onto Google and you can Google old steel mills from Youngstown, Ohio, especially the blast furnace area. And I may have sent you a picture of what that area looked like as well. The actual building and the railroad tracks that I'm going to explain how those come into play here. Those were all in that picture. And we go down there because, you know, I mean, first of all, it was just a gigantic area of places for us to just go around and be young men and investigate and do what we do. And, you know, we would go down there armed, you know, because it was that time of the era where some nefarious things would go on down there. You know, the mafia has always been big in Youngstown, Ohio. And, you know, people would put bodies down there, and sometimes gangs would do things down there and take care of business down there. And,
Okay. Well, let's back the truck up. Okay. You're armed. You kids.
Yes, sir.
You're kids, right?
Yes.
And you're
we were
armed
14.
with what?
Well, there were three of us that had guns. Now, one had a very pathetic 25 caliber automatic that made its way through all of our hands, and it was a sad excuse for a weapon. Every time it was shot, the firing pit would pop out, and we'd have to put it back in. Another person had a little 22. And the one that really could protect us was, I will say, borrowed from my dad's closet.
Okay. All right, that's enough of that. Don't ever do that. Okay. Move on.
No, I don't recommend it.
No, move on.
How old were you guys again? Do you want to repeat that?
We were 14.
Yeah.
And,
14.
you know, we did that, and we never used them. We never shot anybody, anything, no animals, nothing. We just took it down there because we wanted protection. God forbid something happened. And the number one reason was we didn't want to run into like maybe a homeless person that they frequented that areas, and there have been stories of them attacking kids. The number one reason why we took them down there is because if anybody lives in bigger cities, you hear stories about packs of wild dogs. You know, they're not your, you know, hey, come here, Bubby, come here, let me pet you. They're not like that. There's about 6 or 7, you know, dogs that they help each other survive, and they will attack human beings, and they will maul and kill people. Wow. And I remember during a few year period that there was a couple homeless people that were killed by that. And, you know, we brought them down there just to protect ourselves.
Okay.
And we were down there this one day, and the way we would get into it is one of my best friends. So there were 4 of us this day. 2 of my best friends are no longer here, unfortunately. My one buddy who lived directly across the street from where we would enter the steel mills. If you look on Google Maps, you'll see Youngstown Warren Road, or Route 422, which goes way through Youngstown and into some of the other suburbs. And that was right across the street from his house. So we would kind of jump a little fence, cross 422, get into the area to go down into the steel mills. And by the time that we got into the steel mill area that we like to go into, it'd be about a half an hour. So we had to go down a real large hill of, like, let's just say, you know, gravel and material like dirt and things. And we'd go down standing up, but coming back up, you'd have to be on all 4s. So we would get down there, and we had a certain building that we liked to hang out in, and we called it our home base because it wasn't easy for you to get up into, and it definitely would not be easy for any of these wild dogs to get into because there were no stairs leading up into this building. So there was kind of like a concrete outcropping on the building where you could tell there used to be stairs. We would have to jump up onto this, and kind of roll ourselves up and in. So we knew we were safe from them. And on the inside, it was a 4-floor building. And in the middle of the room, you could look straight up and you could see all the way up, all 4 floors to the ceiling. And it was the middle of each floor was cut out so that you could see each floor. There were stairs that were on the outside of the room that hugged the wall, and it would go up to each additional floor. And some of the stairs were dilapidated and falling apart. So there'd be like maybe 3 or 4 missing stairs here and there with just rebar sticking out. We'd have to hop over those. And, you know, it was a little dangerous, but again, being young boys, hey, Leona, I just didn't quite worry about anything, and neither did my friends. And what we really liked about it is it gave us privacy. And they had these, and I always say this when I tell this story, I don't know what they were. They were from the steel making process. They had these shape, you know, the old gladiator shields, when they'd hold them, it kind of covered them like a U almost. Yeah. It protected their shoulders. It was kind of shaped in that fashion. I'd love to know what they were made for, but this building just so happened to have hundreds of these. And at each side of the building, north, south, east, and west, there was an opening. So what we did is we took these things and we lined them up and stacked them up as high as we could so that we had those kind of makeshift walls to keep light out and from prying eyes getting in, because just outside of this building, maybe 5 to 10 yards at the most away from the building, was a railroad track where they would ferry in material and ferry out steel. And it would come literally right by this building. And if they saw us, they're going to call police, they're going to call security, they're going to let them know somebody's in there, especially if they see kids. So we wanted these walls up, and we would always have fires at night. We'd stay there late at night, and there was no shortage of supplies of things to burn. You know, there were pallets everywhere. So we would have giant fires, and the building being just metal and concrete, there really was no danger of fire in there, because especially because 4 floors up, the fire never made it to the ceiling. And this one evening we had a really good fire going. And I remember at one point we were just standing there and none of us were talking. And I'm sure we've all been there when you're staring at a fire and everyone kind of just zones out for a minute or two, and you're just staring at the fire and thinking. And all of a sudden we hear this pack of wild dogs, and we decided, hey, let's go outside and see what they're doing. You know, they can't get to us. So we walked out to this outcropping, this concrete kind of outcropping, and we went out to see, and there was about 6 or 7 of them, and they ran right by us. Not one of them looked at us or paid us any attention. They were on a mission. And just past the railroad tracks, maybe even 3-4 feet past the railroad tracks, were huge piles of coke, you know, if you know the steel making industry, they use coke. It's an ingredient to create steel. And they had huge piles of it. And I guarantee you, from one end to the other, I mean, I couldn't even see where it started and ended. So at least a mile or more each way. These dogs ran by where we were standing, maybe 3 yards, made a quick left, went up over this one pile and down to the other side. And within a second or two, we start hearing mass hysteria. We start hearing these animals attacking what we thought was each other. We thought they were fighting each other, and you know, we couldn't see what was going on, but we sure as heck weren't gonna get down and go look. And then within a couple seconds after that, we start picking up on another noise of something louder, much deeper, that is part of this attack going on. And it made it very clear that there was an animal that they were attacking, and we couldn't see it, but it started to make it very apparent that this other animal was starting to get the best of these dogs, because we started hearing yelping and crying. And then what happened next was extremely shocking. Was 2 dogs came literally flying over the top of this mound of coke. Now, when I say flying, I mean they were in the air. One's behind was facing us, getting thrown towards us. The other hit the top of it and rolled, hit the ground. And I remember one of them got up and started limping away, and the other sat down for a second, and it got up, and it had a real bad wound on it. I actually felt real bad. I'm an animal person, so I felt real bad. Had a cut all the way from its shoulder all the way down its side, like something had just flayed it open, and it was bleeding really bad. And it limped away. And then another couple dogs come hitting the top and thrown over, crying, get up and run away. And then the ones that were left just came and decided themselves that they were going to get out of there. And they took off the way we came. We were in complete and utter shock. We had no idea what just happened. We're staring at these dogs running back the way they came. And one of my friends who was standing to my left and just behind me said, "Guys, what is that over there?" And at one moment, we all kind of just glanced to our right, and not 10, 15, I won't even say 15 feet. I'd say at the most 10, 11 feet from where we were standing, this animal crawls to the top of this mound of this coke, and it is literally the largest creature I have ever seen to date in my life. I've been to zoos. I've watched, movies. I've watched, documentaries. I've watched about polar bears and grizzly bears and elephants. And I've never seen anything built like this. Now, it wasn't bigger than an elephant, but I'm going to tell you what. It reminded us every bit of a giant polar bear the size. What it looked like was a gigantic, freakishly huge dog wolf type of creature whose size was so large that, and this is something I've always said in all my interviews, and I'll say it to the day I die, it looked fake. It was so big. It just couldn't register in any of our minds that there was something this large that looked like this thing in front of us. And
so Matt, have you seen like a grizzly bear or a polar bear like up close at the zoo? Like I don't know how your zoos are, but like here there's zoos where there's like, there's the big thick glass, and like sometimes Correct. If you're lucky, they'll be right up to you, like just for a size reference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was at the Columbus Zoo numerous times, and some of the other big zoos, and, they have the water where the polar bears swim in and everything. Bigger than any of the polar bears or grizzlies I've ever seen on TV or in a zoo. It was huge.
Would you say
and
it was
again,
like twice the size of a grizzly? I'm just like rough idea here.
The way that I can describe how this animal looked was, you see a grizzly bear and a polar bear next to each other. The way that I liken the size difference between them is, you take a polar bear and a grizzly bear. A grizzly bear reminds you kind of like a walking boulder. He's just massive and round and just beastly. Well, then you look at a polar bear, they're much longer, leaner. They have lengthier arms and legs, very large.
Yeah, they can stand 12 feet tall or even bigger.
Right. And that's the kind of shape that this creature had.
Okay.
That's how I can easily compare it to, is just the biggest polar bear I could ever imagine. And it was standing at the top of this pile of this coke, and it was watching the dogs run away. And its head was kind of down, and some of the hairs on its neck and its head were up. So it was angry, and it was watching them go away. And then what occurred next is, again, something I always say first is, some people might find this humorous. We did not. And what it did
yeah, when you're in it.
Right. It lifted its leg and it did its business. And what was so freaky about it and scary was, when it lifted its leg and it started urinating, the flow that came out of this animal was so powerful. There was so much of it. It was like turning a garden hose on. That's the only comparison I can really compare it to. It hit this pile of coke.
There's no way it can pee like a rhino.
I've never seen a rhino.
I got a story.
Okay.
When I got peed on by a rhino, and I mean, it blasted me. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I love hearing that. You throw in any story for me, I love hearing it.
Yeah, but I get it.
I would not want that. Absolutely.
So was the coke in a hard powdered state? Did this powder start going, up in the air when it was peeing?
It hit it, and there's just pieces getting thrown up in the air, flying towards us, going in every direction. And my one buddy that had noticed it first, he started getting really freaked out, and he took a couple steps back, and he kind of got tripped up, and he fell backwards into that makeshift wall that we had created with these metal pieces. And the noise that it made was a very loud sound of metal on concrete. And as soon as it heard it, it snapped its head and it looked right at us, and it was giving us its full attention. And it was not happy that we saw it. It looked upset that we were there and that it didn't know we were there at first. And it started baring its teeth. It was looking at us, and the very, very first thing that I noticed is the eyes. And this is something that to this day, I still believe there's something supernatural going on with these creatures, is because its eyes were glowing this orange, yellowish kind of amber kind of color, but it wasn't eye shine. It was almost like they were self-illuminating. Mm-hmm. It was just so bright that there was no way it could be eye shine. You could see the pupils. You could see, every internal, part of the anatomy of the eye of where it was looking. And that's what was really disturbing too. Yeah. And when I felt blood starting to leave my face was because you could see which one of us it was looking at. So each one of us knew, it's looking at me now. Now it's looking at my buddy over here. And that was disturbing. And my one friend, starts going, oh my God. And right when he did that, it growled at us. And when I say it growled at us, it wasn't like a dog growling at us. We immediately, all four of us, when we talked about it later, we felt this ground. I believe it was infrasound. It hit us, immediately went into my chest, what I felt immediately. And what happened to me was different than a couple of my buddies. I felt it in my thighs, all the way into my calves, and my ankles felt extremely weak, almost like I felt like I wanted to go down onto my knees. My other buddy who was standing to my right, my best friend, told me that's similar to how he felt. The other two they said out loud, something's wrong. I feel like I'm going to pass out. My other buddy started started gagging. He said, I'm going to throw up. Something, was wrong. I feel like I'm going to go out. And it just stood up on two legs. And right then, the paradigm shifted. All of our world changed at once. It was everything that we had learned to that point in our lives, where werewolves are mythology, they don't exist. Things like this are only in movies and comic books or cartoons. This thing stood up on two legs, looked as comfortable on two legs as a human being would, and it was as comfortable on two as it was on four. It had the dog-shaped legs. I've heard some stories where people have seen dogmen, and they said they have human-type legs. These were not human. They were dog-shaped with the bend and everything in them. You could see the muscles in the legs all the way down to the feet. Like, when you see a bodybuilder and you see how their definition is just so incredible. You can see how each muscle, you can see the lines, how they're separating in each muscle. That's what its thighs look like, the quadriceps in its legs. It was just incredible how big they were and how massive the muscles were. The bones going down to the lower part of its legs, I mean, they had to be every bit like as thick as this. I mean, they looked like just like a baseball bat. They were like thick as a wooden baseball bat. And I'm not talking the part you hold. I'm talking at the thick end. And the upper body that I saw was human-like. It had the traps all the way. It almost even looked like it had a neck because its traps were so big. They just came up and connected right here. The chest and everything was extremely muscular and built. But what freaked me out personally the most was the arms were so overly long that the hands were actually they reminded me of raccoon hands, and they were hanging past the knees almost to its ankles. The fingertips were that long, and it was just so unnaturally shaped and large, that it was just like, again, it kept going through my head. This is fake. This can't be real. I'm going to wake up at any moment and I'm just going to be like, oh, thank God this is a dream. But we weren't. We were really there. And my buddy that had fallen into the wall and gave this thing our attention had enough. He turned around and he ran into the building and we followed suit. I almost kind of fell going in because my legs were still weak. So we ran into the building and we immediately started heading towards the stairs, jumped over those 4 stairs that were missing with the rebar sticking out. And we ran up to the 2nd and then up to the 3rd floor. And we stopped at the 3rd. We could have gone up to the 4th. We just stopped at the 3rd for whatever reason. And in the middle of each upper floor, you could walk to the middle of the room, and there was a half wall of concrete. And you can have this like half wall. It came up maybe to the middle of my stomach, just under my pecs. So that's where it was. And we were looking down and everybody's kind of freaking out except my one buddy who had fallen into the metal part that caused the attention is now going postal. He's screaming, he's crying, he wants to go home. We have to get out of here. It's going to kill us. So finally, and we start shaking him, and I'm a big guy now. I'm 6'4" and 265 pounds. I obviously wasn't that big as a kid, but I was big when I was younger. And we're grabbing him, and I grabbed him from behind, and I put my hand around his mouth and grabbed him real hard. I didn't even realize I had him up off the ground. His feet were dangling.
Okay,
and he's starting.
Let me interrupt. Was this guy's name Alex? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay.
I want to backtrack a little bit.
Yes,
just in case I forget. What coloration was this creature? Or couldn't you even tell? Was it too dark?
Outside it was too dark.
Okay.
But I am going to address that for you just here in about a minute.
Okay.
So I felt him starting to lose consciousness. So I put him down, and we're shaking him, and I have my hand over his mouth, and we're all yelling at him as quietly as possible. Are you going to shut up? You're going to bring this thing in here. It's going to come in here and it's going to kill us. Are you going to be quiet? And he shakes his head and slowly removed my hand from his mouth. And he did. He kept quiet at the moment. Just as I took my hand away from his mouth, we heard a thump, and then the telltale sign of what sounded like thick dog nails on concrete, which signaled to us it's coming in. And with the huge fire that we had going, just like you see in movies or anything, or if you're just at a fire somewhere and you walk past a fire at a certain angle, your shadow that gets thrown on a wall is, 10, 20 times bigger than you are. So you can imagine the size of this thing that I've been trying to explain to you is so large it looks fake. Well, this shadow, all of a sudden it's coming in, and when the shadow hits it, it hits the far wall. And that's the thing that we start to notice first, is this just shadow that is just almost the entire wall of the entire building. And it enters the first floor. And as soon as it comes in, it's almost like when a train is coming, and a real long train's coming, and you see the caboose part pulling, and then it just keeps coming. That's kind of like what it was. It just keeps going in, and it's not ending. It keeps coming in, and we're not seeing the end of it. Finally, the entire creature enters the room, and the light from the fire is shining on it. So we are looking down at it from the third floor, and we're only 15, 20 feet from it. We have an unbelievably great look at this creature.
So it's only one floor below you.
2 floors. We're on the third. It was on the first.
Oh, okay.
And it is as black as any black I have ever seen in my life. It was so black that it almost seemed like it was sucking light from the room. It was odd the way that it was so black. It was so black that I truly believe that if there was no light in the room, we would still be able to see this creature in a completely lightless room, because the darkness that it exuded was darker than the outside.
Yeah.
So it was dark. It did not have extremely long hair. I would say that the fur or the hair on it was at the longest an inch and a half. It was not wiry. It was not bushy. It was almost high, and it was just tight. It was almost like I've even said to Sibylla Irwin and I have been working together, and she's helping me make a rendering of it. And I said to her, it was almost like it was groomed. It was so tight, the hair on it. And it's walking in, and you could see every single muscle moving. What I noticed immediately was the scapula, the back bones on its back, that when you see a big cat, how they're popping up as they walk. And the difference between, say, a tiger or a lion or a mountain lion is when those scapulas were popping up as it was walking, the muscle that was surrounding it was so thick. It was, what are we looking at? How is it possible that even the muscle there is that thick, that it's moving like that? And it did not have on its arms down to its I call them, again, like raccoon hands. They weren't like dog paws. They were this very, very long fingers that were just absurdly long. And I'm sure it had claws, because as it was walking, you could hear the claws clicking on the ground. I didn't really get a good look at, but you definitely could see them. It had and at first, maybe when I was younger, I had thought that it had maybe a reflection from the light in the room that caused a lighter kind of look on down its fur, going from the back of the neck all the way down to its tail. But I believe it had kind of a light whitish strip going all the way down from the base of its neck to the tail. And the tail was not bushy either. The tail, I liken it to, again, I'll say a mountain lion. You know how a mountain lion's tail is more thicker, and it's not bushy, and it's real tight as well with the hair. That's the kind of tail that the...
Oh, man, locked up. Can you throw up Loretta Collins' question?
Was it on all fours?
Yeah. So let's hope he unlocks. This is the fun of the internet, huh?
Oh my gosh. I'll just shoot him a message.
Yeah, shoot him a message. You can just sign off and just get back on. Sometimes it gets on a different satellite or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a perfect spot to take an intermission if we need to go potty. You can do that.
Yeah. It's I mean, it sounds like this thing was massive.
Yeah, I mean, you can't emphasize the how big and massive it was any more than Matt is. I mean, he's really definitely driven that point home. I'm watching this and listening to his story, and I did hear it years ago. So when he contacted me, I knew exactly who he was, and I'm like, "Ooh, I know that story." But I wanted to, not only tell the story, but we'll get into some cool details that I didn't get to really hear in the other time he told it. So there he is.
Back.
Hello.
Hey.
Lost you there for a second.
Yeah, that happens. So first, before we go on, was this thing now on all fours, or was it standing upright? It was on all fours.
Yes, it was back down on all fours.
Okay.
And it was making its way through the room. And one of the things that really bothered me, that caused me a lot of fear, and when I really started to get the sense that maybe we were going to die here, was this thing was drooling. And it wasn't just drooling a little bit. It was drooling so much that it was just gushing, pouring out of its mouth, huge long strings just snapping and hitting the concrete. And I likened it to when you have a strong rainstorm and you hear how the water is hitting concrete. That's what it sounded like. And what scared me so bad was, if it's salivating this much, it's salivating for one or both reasons. It's salivating because it's about to kill, or it's salivating because it's going to kill and eat.
Yeah.
And that's the fear that I had in me. And I really started to get this impression of, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're just kids. We were 14 years old. We might have thought we were tough, but we were just babies.
Was this saliva
And
thick or was it thin, Matt?
no, it was very thick and just absurdly pouring out of its mouth, almost
Okay.
like, you know, like a faucet was pouring
Yeah.
it out of its mouth. And again, it just, to me, it's, I'm about to eat. I'm about to get some dinner here, or at least kill these things. And you know, some things happened as it walked. You know, you could see all the muscles in its backs and its legs. And like I said, you saw that white stripe going all the way down to its tail. It had, its ears were at attention. They really reminded me of more of a Doberman Pinscher kind of shape. And they were at attention, and they were cupped, and they were actually turning as it was listening. You could tell where its ears were turning to listen. And it started sniffing. And what happened was, it was walking by the fire, and this is one of the things that happened, and it was only like 2 seconds, but gave me the impression that there was something supernatural going on besides the eyes. And, you know, the eyes were still glowing. And I'll always say this too. I don't know what's natural colors of this thing's eyes were, because I've heard dogmen stories in the woods where people have seen dogmen with every kind of color under the sun, like humans, and more, like red eyes and green and white. And I couldn't see its natural color. All I could see was whatever this glow was. And, you know, its left front leg, paw, raccoon hand, or whatever, hit the ground right by the fire. And what occurred happened so fast, but noticeable, that this is when I started thinking there's something else going on here. Was when it hit the ground. You know, when you look at the sun, like videos of the sun, when they have like magnetic storms, and you see like kind of the wisps of the sun, and the storms make different shapes, or little tornadic kind of shape. Something on a very small scale like that happened when its left front foot hit the ground, and that flowed around that leg. And then for just 2 seconds, it almost, I mean, the only way I can say is it cloaked out for like 2 seconds. You didn't see the leg anymore. You saw through the leg. And then it was back to normal. And it only happened 2-3 seconds. I wouldn't even say 3, like 2.5. But it was enough to notice that it happened, and that it drew this fire up around it. And I always have thought about this through the years of what that was. And you know, it makes you think that, you know, you hear all these stories of different cryptids being able to cloak out, or maybe, you know, do the quote unquote predator kind of thing, where they can hide in plain sight and you can see through them. And if you're not paying attention, you don't see them. I kind of got that impression that maybe this thing has that ability. And for whatever reason, it showed it for just a couple seconds. And then it never did it again. And it started sniffing the air. And as soon as it started sniffing the air, it caught our scent. And it looked up, and it looked right at us. And I felt like I was going to pass out, because it saw us and it knew where we were, and it growled at us, and it showed us its full set of teeth. It had huge canines coming down. In fact, the canines, the tips of them, when it wasn't growling, you could actually see the tips hanging out from the top lips. And it had large bottom canines. You could see teeth all the way through, just glinting in the light. And then it growled at us again. But whereas before we kind of got sick, this time we didn't really get affected for it. We felt a little vibration. We didn't get sick and much. And the reason I think that this did not occur is because we had that half wall of concrete in front of us. And if it did throw that infrasound at us, I believe that half wall of concrete protected us from it having effect on us again. It was definitely loud. You could feel it kind of in your feet in the floor of this concrete in this building, but we just didn't get sick like before.
You're making my eyes water, Matt.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And what happened next was, after it looked at us, it stood back up, and it was in full sight of us. And, you know, each corner of the room, it had these gigantic load-bearing pillars of concrete that obviously went past, you know, into the ground and were the major foundation pillars for this building. And there was 4 of them. And they were huge. I would say maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. And they went as high as, you know, the building went. The ceiling in each one of these floors, I would say, was probably 15 feet high. So when this thing stood up on 2 legs again, and again, I have to say, it was comfortable. You could tell it was super comfortable on 2, just like 4. And it stood up in front of one of these pillars, and you could not see the sides, you know, nor I thought maybe you'd be able to see, you know, at least when it stood up, some of that concrete pillar on its sides. You just saw the meat of the animal, the rib cage and everything. You could not see that, but you could see it going up. Now, we went back years later to get an idea of how the size of this room was and everything. And that's how we got, you know, the size of about 14, 15 feet high ceilings on each floor. Now, if that was the case exactly, let's say 15 feet, when it stood up at its full height, it had to be every bit as tall as between 10 to 12 feet tall. And I'm using it at the tip of its ears as well. So I'm not cutting the ears out. We're counting the ears. This thing was something out of a nightmare. And again, I kept waiting to wake up. And it looked at the stairs and it looked at us, and then it jumped back down onto all 4s and it started running for the stairs. And that's when everybody just went postal. I was stuck in fear. My buddy to my right, my best friend, was standing right next to me. The one friend who had lost it a couple times was running in circles, screaming, "What are we going to do? We have to get out of here." There was only 2 ways off of that 3rd floor. One was to run up to the 4th, which we would be stuck up on the 4th. There was another doorway that went outside the building to the fire escape, which would take us up to the top of the roof. But the problem with the fire escape was from the 2nd floor down, it had been dilapidated and rusted away and fell down of years of just no use. And, you know, the steel mill's just falling apart. So there was a pile of those stairs at the bottom, all in a big heap. And if we wanted to jump down there, we probably would have got killed. So there was no way down. But they started running for those fire escapes to go up to the fourth, or to go up to the roof. Me and my buddy, I was frozen solid. I started thinking of death. I started believing this was how my life was going to end. And, you know, I've told this story, and, you know, I kind of start getting real emotional. I can feel the sweat starting and my cheeks turning red. And I've lost it a couple times telling this story before. You know, I'm really close with my family, and I started thinking about my mom and dad and about my 4 siblings. You know, and like I said, I'm real close with animals, and we had a dog, and I started thinking I'm never going to see them again. You and you have a 14-year-old who thinks that his life's about to end. I was getting ready to go into high school, to Youngstown Ursuline High School, which is a private high school. It's known for not only academics, but athletics. I was going there to play football like my dad did, and I couldn't wait to do it. And the thought went through my head, I'm never going to get to play football again. We're going to watch, all of us are going to watch whoever it decides to start with, maul all of us and kill each one of us. Because when it started running up the stairs, it jumped over that separation of 4 stairs that were missing, like it was that big. Just jumped right over it. And it started running up to the 2nd floor. And then I need to explain, once it would have gotten from the 2nd floor staircase up to the 3rd, I and my friend would be right there. So as soon as it got up to that 3rd floor, we'd be standing right there. So it would be either my best friend or me that it would decide to start with. And I really, I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. I just saw my family. I saw my loved ones. And I thought, I'm going to die. Oh my God, we're going to die.
So Matt, I just question, because earlier on you had alluded that you guys had brought weapons to protect yourself. Had you guys been too afraid to even consider using them? Did you give up the thought that this thing would even stop it?
We didn't even know we had them at that point. I didn't
were you
even
guys
know.
That afraid that it was just it was just flight or fight, and it's complete flight at this point? Like,
we might as well not even have had them, because we didn't even know we had them at that point. It was complete and utter terror and fear like I have never felt to this day. And as
an adult reflecting back on this, had you have been there today and you could have kept your wits on you, do you think it would have done anything?
No, I don't. Yeah. I think it would have pissed it off.
That's it.
Because like I said, a 25, a 22 would not have even broken its skin. and I really, the size of this, Alex, I don't think the 38 would have even broken its skin. It would have had to be something, along the lines of some of those grizzly rifles that, they shoot the full-grown Kodiaks with, that I forget what they're called, but they have like bullets like that. That's the only thing. And I've heard stories of people shooting dogmen in the woods and them basically looking down and almost brushing it away and not reacting to bullet wounds, which again makes you wonder what supernatural type of thing is going on here, that they're almost laughing off gunshots. And it was coming up those stairs, and this is where I'm telling you, I'm Catholic. I'm not the best practicing Catholic in the world. I definitely don't go to church enough, and I should more, but I know for a fact there was divine intervention that day, because we were about to die. And just as it was halfway up to the 3rd floor, we hear the most beautiful sound ever. We hear a train coming to that train track that goes right by that building. And as it was coming, we could hear the clack, 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 clack getting louder. And this thing stopped on the stairs, because just as it got in front of our building, they laid on their horn. Now, I have to say this, even when we've had huge fires there before, this has never happened before. They have never laid on their horn. They've never let us know that they saw the light. I don't know if somebody, on the train, maybe being up so high, saw something was going on in there. I just think because we had built a really big fire, they just were letting someone know that there's something going on in there. Hi, Sibylla. I see Sibylla's here. And They laid on that horn and we started screaming to the top of our lungs, please help us, somebody help us. And this thing stopped and it looked up at us and it looked back at the doorway and it turned around and it left that building so fast. And this is another thing that I'm telling you, I think something supernatural is going on with those, is it left that building so quickly that I've heard stories of like shadow people, of how they're standing in a bedroom and you can see the shape of I've never seen them, but I've heard of the stories of seeing a shadow man in a room and all of a sudden it's just a flash of black and they're gone. And I'm telling you, it turned around and it moved beautifully. And I do mean that beautifully. It reminded me every bit as much of how panthers or cougars move. It's a very beautiful, almost liquid metal or oil kind of fluidity to way those creatures move out of trees. And it moved just, it was awe-inspiring. It was so fast. But once it started running down the stairs, you just saw a streak of black and it was gone. And we talked about that for years. Guys, did you notice how all of a sudden it was there and then it was a streak and and we all agreed that that happened. So it wasn't just one of us seeing that and the other said, nah, I didn't see that. It was all four of us said, yes, I saw that. What was up with that? But it took off and it left the building in the blink of an eye. And this thing kept going and we're screaming to the top of our lungs, please, somebody save us, help us, screaming. And then it just kept getting farther away and farther away. And all of a sudden we couldn't hear it anymore. And that feeling of we're saved went back to complete and utter horror that this thing's going to come back in the building. Once the train is out of sight, it's going to come back in and it's going to get us. It's going to finish its job. Now, thank God it did not come back in, but I'm going to tell you, the fear of us waiting for this thing to come back in was so palpable, was so strong. We were up on that third floor for maybe 45 minutes before we decided to move down to the second floor. We got to the second floor and we remembered we'd had weapons. And again, as I said to the both of you before, I'm glad we didn't remember. First of all, I don't think we could have hit it in the first place. We were so horrified. Secondly, if we did, I think it would have ripped us apart even worse because it would have been angry with us. So I'm glad we did not remember we had them. We did take them out. We cocked them. We took our, old, I don't know if you remember the old store back in the day. It was called Farmore. We had our Farmore special flashlights with just dim, 2C battery flashlights that lit up maybe 2 feet from where you're standing. We all had one. We had them on. We had the guns out. And we made our way down finally after another half an hour of the first floor. And we start talking about we have to get out of here. It was already almost 11 o'clock at night. And we had, everyone's going to start wondering, where are they? Why aren't they back home? And my buddy who had lost it is losing it again, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, we have to stay here. We can't go out there. It's going to get us. It's waiting for us. It's going to kill us. Finally, I just kind of lost it at that point, and I grabbed him and I said, listen, I said, you're going to come with us, or you're going to stay in this building by yourself, and it's going to come back, and it's going to kill you, and you're going to be by yourself. So you either make up your mind now and come with us and have a better chance of getting home, or you're going to die alone. And he starts crying, please, God, don't leave me here. And he's pulling on our shirts and begging us not to leave him. And we told him we're leaving. So make up your mind. And finally, he grabbed onto the back of my shirt and he's choking me. He grabbed onto my best friend's shirt stand and he's choking him and he's holding on to us. And we started heading out horrified because, you know, that outcropping of concrete. Also, if before you jumped up on it, if during the day you could look underneath it and you could look way back into the building. So it could have been down there waiting for us. And that's what some of us were thinking.
Yeah, I would have been. I would have stayed there till sunrise, probably.
Yeah, we were just we were just in such horror, and we wanted to leave because we were all convinced it was coming back. And when we got down and we were shining underneath and it wasn't under there. And I'm going to tell you, like I said, it took a half an hour to get from that building back to this mound that we had to climb up to get to across 422 to my friend's house. Was the most horrifying half an hour of our lives, because every sound, the wind blowing, someone kicking a piece of gravel, sand, anything, it felt like it was signaling it was behind us. We'd all turn around at every noise. We finally got to that huge mound of just material that we could walk down, turned side by side going down, but going back up, we had to be on all fours. And every time we would ever do it, every time, 100% of the time, we would always have to crawl up on all fours, and we would always laugh at each other because it would always be one of our turns to start sliding down. And we joke, but we weren't joking then, because when we start sliding back down, we're screaming, is it behind us? Is it behind me? Oh my God. And it wasn't. And we finally started getting up, and we were up there. And I remember I got up first with another one of my buddies, and we're trying to get our other two friends up. We're reaching for them to pull them up. And we hear that pack of wild dog off in the distance. And we freaked because we thought this was signaling this creature again. Thank God we never saw the wild dogs. We just heard them from a distance. We never saw it again. Finally got them up, and we ran across the highway, and we jumped the fence and got to my buddy's house, and no one was home there. His parents were out. We just sat on their porch, and I know this doesn't really mean much, but he just had a hose there, and I'll always remember turning the water hose on, and I just sprayed myself down and drank water so much that I was sick. And then each one of us just kept drinking, and we just sat on the porch, and for like an hour, we just stared across the street right at that area, and no one said a word. And we were just really screwed up from that. And my one buddy that had the worst part of it mentally didn't speak for 2 weeks after that. He didn't go to, well, obviously we weren't in school. He didn't go to anything we went to. He didn't go on any trips with us, because we would always go like there was an awesome arcade called OJ's Games Galore that we'd always go almost every day. He never went with us. 2 weeks we didn't see him. He to this day is one of the four of us that's still alive. He still gets psychological help. I went, and I'm half Lebanese, so we have a Maronite Rite Catholic church in Youngstown. It's called St. Maron's, and anybody that's from Youngstown knows that church. And I went and I saw my priest, and I had to go see him for a long time because I had some major issues dealing with almost dying of what I saw. I needed to try and make some sense of what happened. And, he told me, Matthew, you need to understand that there are things in this world that most people will never know that exist. And he brought up possession. And he said, I'm sure you've heard of possession. And he said, it's real, unfortunately. And he said, and I've seen it happen. And he said, there are more things than just that out there. And it's better that most don't know what's out there, but you've been thrust into the light, and you now know that there are things out there that go bump in the night, and that there are things out there that no one believes are real. He said, it just depends on how you want to deal with it. He said, but you made it. He said, he believed too. He said, I believe that God and angels were protecting the four of you, and that there was divine intervention. And he said, you all made it, thank God. And he said, you're just going to have to learn how to live with that. And I've had PTSD, that I've dealt with that my whole life, and I to this day occasionally have nightmares where I'm in a situation where one is chasing me down and it starts attacking me. And I've had other ones where they talk to me too. So, it was a really stressful situation. And the four of us all decided when we went to our parents that we would all be there together to support each other for each group of our parents. Now, my two other buddies, the one that freaked out, and my other friend, their parents just 100%, oh, you guys are crazy. You saw, dogs or a bear or something. You guys are nuts. The other two parents, my mom didn't even want to hear it. She just said, honey, you saw something. You didn't know what it was. It was at night. It could have been anything. My father, he disappointed me a little that night. He said, Matt, you guys saw something like a black bear. We get them every once in a while in our area. It could have followed, because there's a state park called Mill Creek Park in the Youngstown area. It follows the Mahoning River. It could have followed from the park to the Mahoning River and gotten down there. Could have been an extra large one or a mutated one, and you guys came up on it, and it was hungry, and the train scared it away. He didn't believe me at first. When he got older and not long before he passed away from pancreatic cancer, I had to sit down with him. And, I was older, of course, and I talked to him about it. And I said, Dad, about what happened to me and my friends when we were younger with that creature. I said, I really need to talk to you about this. I said, because I can't live with myself if you're gone and you and I don't talk about this again. And I went over it with him, and I told him, Dad, I know what I saw. I'm a grown man now. And I'm telling you, that's what we saw. And it was life-changing for me, for him to look at me and tell me he believed me. And, he had changed over the years watching some of these things on TV. Actually, things, Doug, that you had put out, like MonsterQuest and stuff, that had helped him believe in more things, and that helped him believe me, and that meant a lot to me. And it was very life-changing for me to have him look at me and say, I believe you, son. And the one last
as I remember, we gave lie detector tests to polygraph tests to witnesses, and they all passed. So
it sounds like shows like MonsterQuest helped open his mind, and made him see that there are maybe more things out there that.
And specifically, your show was one of them that really helped change him. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
And I cried like a baby when he told me he believed me. And the last group of parents. My best friend, he's not here, and my two buddies that aren't here, they're not here to say that I can explain how they died. But part of the reason that they died, they started doing things in their lives that wasn't so good to try and deal with some of the stressors that occurred from that, and it ended them. But his dad, I'm not going to say exactly what he did, but he was in charge of a lot of things in the city of Youngstown. And when we told him about it and where we were, the first thing he did was just go off on us. What are you doing down there? There's all kinds of bad things. And he mentioned, gangs and mob and people dumping bodies down there. And he mentioned the wild dogs and all that. And he said, I don't ever want to hear you guys go down there again. I'll make sure myself I put you guys in juvenile hall and you'll spend some time there if you ever go there again. So we thought that was it. But my best friend later that week talked to him, just the two of them. And he told his dad, we're not messing with you. He said, listen, he said, I know what you're talking about. He said, the officers have gotten calls about them. We've gotten reports about this thing. He said, there's been people that were homeless, that were killed by, some of these packs of wild dogs. He said one of them might not have been killed by a pack of wild dogs. We're not sure if it was one of those things down there. So without him saying 100% to him, yes, everything that you guys saw is true, he basically told him in the most roundabout kind of way he could, saying that he was aware of it, that he's got the officers from the Youngstown Police Department had gotten calls about it, and people had been seeing them, and that's why he went so crazy on us about being down there. And he said, you guys lucked out that you got out of there and not one of you was attacked. He said, I could be standing over your funerals right now. Yeah. So that was a big one for us, to him to tell us that. And he made, the thing that really stuck with a lot of us too, and was difficult for us to handle over the years, was specifically him and my father put it on us that, you guys are going to that school, and don't you realize that if you go around telling your friends that you saw that, first of all, you're going to get all these people that are going to go down there and you could get someone killed. Secondly, you're going to that school, they're going to call you guys crazy. Matt, you want to be a big-time football player at that school? You think he's going to want a player like you on his team talking about werewolves and stuff? So they put the fear of God in us about it. And we had a lot of trouble dealing with having to keep quiet about that stuff for years. And it took me till I was a grown man, till just within the last year, to start talking about this. Yeah. And finally, I started off just going by my first name. And then finally I said, you know what, forget this. This really happened. This is real, and people need to know about it. And the people that know me know that I don't talk about stuff like this. I don't lie about things. I wouldn't make anything up. Anybody that's known me my whole life know that I'm an honest person. And that's why I've given my last name, and I'm willing to do this. So
you don't have anything. You don't have anything to gain.
No.
Say we only have like 15 minutes. Can you take questions from our audience? Would you mind?
Absolutely. And I apologize if I talk too long.
No, it's fine. It's a great story. But people have had questions. One of the questions David Ellis had is he wanted to know what the rear feet look like, the actual feet, like maybe even the tops. Do you remember seeing anything like that? Any detail?
Yeah. When I noticed, like I was talking about, the thickness of the bone, once it reached the ankle area, it just looked like massive wolf's paws. Like if you've ever seen like timber wolves, how big their feet and their leg, because they're really exaggeratingly big. It looked like gigantic timber wolf feet. That's how it reminded me.
So the rear feet were the same, just bigger.
Yes.
How many inches wide would you estimate the rear feet were?
I mean, they had to be. And again, going back, knowing what I know now about, people pouring casts and all that. I mean, I would have to say, I would gather the feet were at least, my God, I mean, they had to be at least 6-7 inches wide.
Okay.
And guaranteed well over 13 inches long, maybe even 15 inches long. They were, again, I can't, I have to keep saying this. It was just so overly big and just so over dramatically large in every sense of the word. It looked fake. It looked like something out of a movie that got thrown right in front of me.
Matthew Bradley asks, were the knees bent backwards?
Yeah, like, so you look at how a dog's legs are, and it's exactly like how a dog's legs. So if a dog stands up to get treats, you know how it has that, they stand up and it kind of goes like that and then down. That's exactly how it looked. It looked just like a dog standing straight up, except it wasn't gang. It wasn't like trying to get its treat and rocking back and forth. It was straight up, standing up, and it had that bend and then down.
Swope asks, do you remember any smell, odor?
No. The only scent that I remember was just from the massive fire that we had going in the center of the room.
What did you make the fire out of?
Mostly pallets.
Pallets, okay.
There were tons of pallets, and then a bunch of just broken like limbs of trees and things like that everywhere. That some of it was wet, some of it was dry, but I'd say the majority of that big fire we made was just a huge pile of pallets. It was like something from, like, if you're going to have a before a football game one night, they have the pallets they put together, before a rivalry game, and they would light the fire. And that's what it was like.
Okay. Deborah asked, you stated by saying the first time you saw one, have there been other sightings?
Well, no, I have never seen another Dogman. The other experience I've told you about that I had was about a little over a month ago. I was in Beaver Creek State Park, which is in Ohio. I had met some people online, and I went to a Bigfoot conference there. It was the first conference of any type I'd ever been to in my life. And the night before the conference, Ernie Davia, who also has had an incredible Bigfoot experience. You could go to Sibylla Irwin's website and her YouTube channel and see his. I made friends with him. Actually, he saw me giving an interview about my experience, and he did not believe in Dogman until he heard mine. And we became friends, and he invited me to meet him at this Beaver Creek State Park Bigfoot conference. I met him and his wife and his cute little dog. And we went to a campsite the night before, and I met a gentleman named Johnny Freeman, who's a well-known psychic. And he basically, in a nutshell, came up to me. I'd never met him in my life. Came up to me and told me I needed to go up this trail that apparently had a portal at the top of it. It's an area in that park where, I don't know the exact date it happened, either early 1900s, late 1800s, 1900 plus people drowned in a flash flood. I think there was one survivor. So knowing what everybody knows about supernatural, you have that kind of loss of life that fast, you're going to have a lot of energy left over and some strange things, I'm sure, down the road. So I went up this trail that took me about a half an hour. I wanted to have an experience. Nothing was happening. I was by myself. And I decided at the end of it, I was going to do an EVP, which I had never done in my life. I just took my phone out and gave it a shot. And you heard it, and a number of other people have heard it. And I got a grunt that I did not hear with my own ears. And there were 2 different sets of 4 types of wood knocks I also did not hear with my own ears. It's on the internet. If you go to Cryptid Creatures, Todd and Brian, Cryptid Creatures Facebook page. They have a recording of that on there. I gave it to you. You're free to let your listeners hear it as well. It's what I always would have expected a Bigfoot to sound like if it grunts. I was totally and utterly blown away after I listened to it. I stood up immediately and just said out loud, "Thank you for doing that for me." And I had a really cool experience there. I didn't see anything, but man, what I heard was on my EVP was incredible. And, I challenge anyone to listen to it. You know my voice on it. You can hear my voice. It's not my voice making that grunt. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions. Christine asks, just give her a real quick, how tall, how wide? I mean, it was the biggest thing you said you've ever seen in your life.
Right. Well, when it stood up in the building, the way that I was able to guesstimate about the size of it, like I said, there was 4 pillars in each corner of the room. They were maybe 4 to 5 feet wide. So when it stood up in front of one of them, you could not see the pillar anymore. So it, at the very least, was 4 to 5 feet wide. And the ceiling had to be about between 14 to 15 feet high. And with its ears, completely sticking up straight, I'd have to say that it was anywhere between 10 to 12 feet tall.
It's pretty big.
It was ridiculous.
So what do you think it is after all these years of contemplation? Do you think it's just for sure paranormal?
I really do.
Demonic?
I've heard... So I can't say if it's demonic. I have heard some descriptions of some of them acting demonic. I've heard some descriptions of, some of them taking almost pleasure and scaring people and getting
that's what
something.
It seems. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting from all of the encounters, and I've talked to numerous witnesses other than you, and everybody talks about the fear, but everybody seems to walk home safe.
And, you hear the stories also that some beings out there, I've heard stories, especially of late, that some of these cryptids or aliens or other things, before they kill something, like to put the fear of God in something because they say that the meat is sweeter when they're terrified.
Okay.
So, which really is kind of freaky if you hear about that as well. But I do really think that there's something supernatural going on.
For sure, it wanted to scare you, man. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
at least
and it could have killed us easily.
Yeah,
easily.
So you do wonder if there's just some kind of paranormal entity that gets energy from scaring the living tar out of people.
I want to mention one thing real quick. I had mentioned my 2 buddies, Todd and Brian at Cryptid Creatures. They had someone on their show recently where a girl was at in Wisconsin with around where the Beast of Bray Road situations have occurred. She was at a summer camp and she saw it. And the night after she saw it, she bravely went to the area where she had seen it, and she did not see it. But what she saw was a red ball of light that she started following. And she said she stepped on a branch and it broke, and the ball stopped and turned around and looked at her and then made its way away from her. And it almost gave me the impression that might have been it. It might have been one form that this thing can turn into.
Yeah, it's possible. And my thoughts on these things is I've talked to so many credible people that claim they've seen them. I've talked to people that really know the outdoors, and they're just saying what they saw is real. And when you talk to homeowners that claim they have them on their property, they don't see them once; they see them numerous times.
Yeah,
and they just say they just leave them alone and they let them go about their business. you don't know what to think, So I'm open-minded because I just don't think witnesses have anything to gain by telling their story.
Right.
One guy
I'm not
actually
getting anything.
Well, there was one witness I talked to on the phone, and he called me up the next day and bitched me out because it was inquiring about his sighting. And he was mad that somebody had given him, what right did I have to call him? Somebody had given me his phone number and I'd called him, but that's kind of the attitude. The guy didn't want any fame.
Right.
He just wanted to, he did tell me the story, and it was, it's pretty crazy, but why should I doubt him?
Right. Yeah. And I, like you just said, obviously I'm not being paid to do this. I'm not getting anything from it. There's definitely, and I hope not, but I mean, there's definitely more negative that could come from me doing this than positive, but I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to sit on it. I think the days of that old mindset of shut your mouth, don't talk about it, it needs to end, because these things exist. There's a lot of things out there that I think that the world needs to come together, instead of, there being a Bigfoot camp over here who doesn't want anything to do with the Dogman camp over here. I think everybody needs to come together and share information and help each other, because there's some strange things going on in this
I
world.
definitely think there's a lot more Dogman witnesses that have not come forward.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more than you might think, because I've always had to dig the information out of people, even way worse than you have to dig Bigfoot info. Somebody had asked, Scout Trackers asked, was the length of the nose and the width between the eyes? Do you have any kind of, just guesstimate?
The nose was extremely long. Like you look at polar bears, theirs aren't very long. So if you take something like, again, a timber wolf, and they do have very long noses. So multiply the size of a timber wolf. Its nose came out very, very long from its face. Its nostrils were extremely thick. Its eyes also, there was a very wide separation, and I can't wait until Sibylla Irwin and I are done. So everybody listening, when it's done, you're going to get to see the best way that her and I are able to render. Well, she's doing the hardest part. She's doing the computer work, but you're going to get to see what this thing looked like to me. And it's going to be incredible. It's already starting to come together. Its eyes were not close together, and they were extremely large. And again, that's why I say you could see the pupils, and you could see the different separations of the anatomy of the eyes moving around and looking at each one of us.
Yeah. Did you okay, when it went back down on all fours, did you see the shoulder muscles then? I mean, does everything kind of go back to more of a dog or a canid looking creature when it's on all fours compared to when it stood up?
It is more dog-like when it's down, but then when you look past that towards the frontal part of the animal, and you see those frontal arms and those raccoon-shaped hands, that's when you're like, man, that's definitely not, a regular, canine or canid. And its back part of its body, definitely very dog-like, just so over dramatically large. It's just, again, just that this can't be really happening. This I have to be waking up at any moment now, and I didn't. It just was gigantic. And I see Flat Rockland mentioning about burial sites or cemetery near. I've heard so many different experiences people have had with dogmen over the years. And a lot of them have been around Indian burial sites. And it makes you wonder, was there an old Indian burial site somewhere around that steel mill that they covered over and just built the steel mill on top of things? That makes you wonder, maybe possibly there was.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly a lot of legends that go way back. So what you saw could have been a skinwalker or a werewolf, or, you know, a human that changed into a wolf. God knows. We don't know. We probably never will, is kind of my guess.
I would love to see another one someday. Now, granted, not in the position as I was in all those years ago, but I do want to see more. I am going to be starting my own show here shortly in the next couple months, and I'm just too ingrained in this world. I know too much about things now, and I've met too many amazing people like you and your son and other people out there. And I'm going to go to Josh Turner's his Dogman conference in September, and
cool.
And I just know too many people out there, and I can't wait to meet Martin, with the Land Between the Lakes experience that he had, and and compare notes, and I can't let it go. I can't just tell the story and disappear.
Do you feel like you're on a search for more information?
Yes.
Or do you find yourself obsessed and watching different podcasts and listening to different witnesses?
I do. I listen to a ton of different things,
okay.
and I have my favorites out there, and I'm not embellishing or just trying to suck up to you. I've told you before, you've been somebody I've looked up to for years because of MonsterQuest and things that you've done, and helped me, learn a lot more about what I've had done, and I watch so many different things because there are those out there, there's some, the way I look at it, there's stories, and then there's experiences. And I will never call anyone a liar, but I think the experiences are the ones that I really give credence to, and the ones that I really hear some things that I liken to what I saw. And I pay really good attention to those, and I file those ones away.
Yeah, it's interesting. MonsterQuest was, to be honest, just born out of curiosity. Just me thinking, oh, now I've got a little money to start satisfying curiosities. It
was amazing. We miss it. We wish you would restart it up again.
Well, maybe, we're doing Legend Meets Science 2 right now, and we're working with a team that are kind of on the edge of going, hey, we should just keep this going. So maybe something like MonsterQuest is born. It's just so damn expensive. MonsterQuest was not a cheap show to produce. Alex, do you get any last questions for Matt?
Where's the best place for someone to go if they've had a Dogman encounter and they don't know who to talk to
report it? Yep, good question.
They don't know who to report it.
What I've learned, I was on the confessionals with Tony Merkel.
Yep.
If I was to pick one person that I would talk to about trying to find out the most that I could about my experience and get as much answers as I could, he seems to be right now the one that really has his nose on the button, so to speak, about the right people to know, where to look for, and have other experiences. And he's a great guy, and I was on his, and he helped me a lot. And if I was to pick one person, I'd say Tony Merkel with the confessionals would be the best one to go to.
Cool. Yeah, I like Tony. Well, thank you, everybody, and chat and all of the live audience, and Alex.
I'm sorry I didn't get to answer everybody's questions.
We'll get you back again. Thank you so much, Matt, and we do appreciate it. appreciate you reliving your story for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
It didn't sound like that was terribly easy, and I'm really glad I took the garbage out early tonight, so I can just stay in and be safe.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
All right, thanks everybody. We love everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Call
everybody.
you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of October,